the broadcast center in Los Angeles, this is KCAL 9 News at 4.
Now at 4 and streaming on CBSN Los Angeles, I'm Juan Fernandez. Our top story, tragedy in Burbank where a street race killed 3 innocent people in a fiery multi-car crash. 2 other people were hurt. It happened late last night on North Glen Oaks Boulevard and Andover Drive. KCAL 9's Jeff Nguyen is live with more on the crash, the victims, and the serious charges those drivers could be facing. Jeff.
Juan, police say that 2 cars were racing in this direction when they collided with 4 innocent victims who were trying to make a left at that light. Let's go ahead and show you a picture of one of the victims who was killed. He has been identified by a friend as Serene Baker, seen here from this Instagram account. Now, Alex Perez, who's a friend, says that the 2 of them formed a tight friendship when they played football together at John Burroughs High School in Burbank. Perez says that his friend Serene was an artist and a musician.
He actually meant the world to me, you know. He was an older guy to me, older brother. He always looked after me, always good laughs and everything. He always checked up on his friends, family all the time. Many people, they would all know, like, he was just a good guy. Like, he would always check up on everyone and everything.
The aftermath gives you a sense of the impact that caused this Volkswagen to break apart. The crash killed 3 people and sent a 4th to the hospital. Derek Sheridan captured the intense flames that erupted from the car after he heard a series of collisions from his home in Burbank.
The whole thing was hard to see. Yeah, it was rough.
I heard the biggest collision in my life.
Some of the debris, like this sunroof, landed in Dweep Biswal's front yard. The burning VW ended up next to his hedges. Burbank police say traffic cameras captured this Kia and this Mercedes racing down Glen Oaks when they collided with the 4 innocent victims in the VW, which was turning left on Andover Drive. The Kia crashed into some parked cars after the collision. Neighbors were able to pull that driver out and placed him on the sidewalk.
He wasn't talking, but he just looked like he was in a lot of pain. He was just grimacing and just, he was quiet.
That man has been hospitalized while police have been interviewing the driver and passenger of the Mercedes.
Everywhere, like flower, I could feel the heat on my body, you know, and it was terrible.
Biswal says he bought his home 2 months ago and put up this wall last month as a barrier because cars often race down his street. Overnight, this man came to the scene trying to find out whether his daughter was involved in the crash.
You know, just couldn't. It's hard. I feel for the family and I'm praying for them right now.
And so far, there have been no arrests in this case, and investigators have not released any of the names involved. We are live in Burbank. Jeff Nguyen, KCAL 9 News.
What a tragedy, Jeff. Thank you. The city of LA prepares to move forward with vaccine requirements for all kinds of businesses. COVID is affecting us all in every aspect of our lives. We're bringing you in-depth coverage throughout the hour here and with the latest developments and looking for answers to many of the questions we all have. Last week, City Council President Nury Martinez asked Angelenos what it's going to take to get more people vaccinated. Well, today she is saying enough is enough and wants the public to show proof of vaccination before entering public indoor spaces. KCAL 9's Hermela Aragawi has more now from downtown Los Angeles.
A major move from the LA City Council. Wednesday, Council President Nury Martinez and Councilman Mitch O'Farrell announced a motion that would require proof of vaccination to enter indoor areas at many businesses.
And that includes but not limited to restaurants, bars, retail establishments, spas, fitness centers, entertainment centers, such as stadiums, concert venues, and movie theaters.
Some business people we spoke with said it's a necessary step to get out of the pandemic for good and keep customers and staff safe.
We know now that even with vaccination, we can get sick, so I have to protect my staff. It is time to take our life in our own hand and just step up for ourselves.
Even just suggesting that will hopefully incentivize a lot more people to get vaccinated.
The city council has sent the motion to the city attorney's office so that they can draft up an ordinance. City Attorney Mike Fewer tweeted Wednesday that he suggests the LA County Board of Supervisors consider a similar motion so it can be consistently enforced across the county.
I anticipate enforcement would probably be a question that they're going to have. How are you going to enforce this? What does this do for my business?
Some business owners say enforcement is where they end up struggling because it can create tension with customers. But they also tell us it seems to be the only way out of the pandemic.
There are some people that have challenged it already in certain places.
Civil rights attorney Alexander Kazarian says similar cases have been taken up by courts.
It doesn't single out anybody that is constitutionally protected, and it doesn't single out any constitutionally protected rights.
The city attorney's office will now draft up an ordinance. It will go to the city council for debate and approval. The Los Angeles City Council President Nuri Martinez tells me she expects it to move pretty quickly. For now, live in downtown LA, Hermela Aragawi, KCAL 9 News.
Hermela, thank you. Here now are the very latest coronavirus numbers. In Orange County, 92 new cases, 375 people are hospitalized today with COVID. That's up 42 from yesterday. And in Ventura County, 269 new cases and 70 people are in the hospital. We're still waiting for LA County's numbers. We'll have those for you as soon as we get them. Well, the mask mandate is heating up in Orange County before schools reopen for in-person learning, and now the Board of Education is getting involved. It plans to sue the governor over the state's school mask mandate. KCAL 9 Orange County reporter Michelle Gili has reaction.
Dash Barney is headed to preschool in Westminster in a few weeks, and his mom is all for him wearing a mask.
I think it's good. I think he needs to wear a mask. He can't get vaccinated.
Individual school districts across Orange County set the rules for masking on campus. Santa Ana, Newport Mesa, and Irvine Unified are just some of the districts requiring masks indoors for students and staff.
I think it's ridiculous. I think it's hard for me to breathe in a mask, and I think it's not safe for kids.
In fact, during a special meeting Tuesday, the Orange County Board of Education voted to sue Governor Gavin Newsom over the mask requirement for children. Primary care doctor Ken Williams was one of those who voted yes.
We're not saying not to wear masks. We're just saying give options to parents. And that these kids, if you look at the data, they're not the ones who are the vectors, nor are they the ones that are dying from this disease.
Local mother Brittany Barney worries because her son is too young for a vaccine. She's against the lawsuit.
Kind of think it's ridiculous. I just, I think everybody should be able to say whether they want to or they don't want to. However, I mean, for me personally, I want to be as protected as possible.
Because the Orange County Board of Education has no jurisdiction over local schools, the outcome of the lawsuit won't impact the current mask mandate. Still, parents are divided over the issue.
I don't like it. I don't think, like I said, I don't think he needs it. I understand it for the teachers and stuff, but not for the kids.
Orange County taxpayers won't have to foot the bill for the litigation brought by the Orange County Board of Education. Members found a lawyer to fight the mask mandate pro bono. In Costa Mesa, Michelle Gili, KCAL 9 News.
The mask mandate is something that every school district across Southern California is facing. So coming up next hour over on CBS 2 News at 5, we'll be talking live with the superintendent of Fontana Schools about what they're doing to keep kids safe. So don't forget about that. But first here, much more COVID coverage at 4. We'll hear from a breakthrough case survivor about his ordeal. And at 4:30, we'll take a closer look at how local businesses will have to deal with a potential vaccine mandate on top of the mask mandate they've already have had to enforce. Well, this extreme heat we're all experiencing and low humidity adding to that's creating some potentially dangerous conditions. KCAL 9 meteorologist Marquina Brown is here now with a look at when we might finally get a break from these triple-digit temps. Marquina.
Yeah, Juan, that is the question of the day. Everybody wants to know, when are we going to cool down? And the answer is good news. It's happening soon. We are looking at one more day of heat as we get into tomorrow. That will be a little bit cooler than today, and then we'll really start to feel the difference in the days to follow. Downtown LA checking in at 81 degrees at this hour. Again, you mentioned how dry it is outside. So everybody's seeing full sunshine. And look at Palmdale. Current temperature there, 107. Yeah, we are going to monitor this heat for you because, again, the cool down is on the way. I'll let you know when it'll happen, how long it'll stick around. And also, we had a temperature today of 119 degrees. I'll let you know who had that temperature coming up in just a little bit. Back to you.
All right, Markina, thanks for that. A standoff between LAPD SWAT and a shooter in South LA ends with a suspect getting away. It began just after 8:30 with a shooting on Gage Avenue near St. Andrew's Place. Police say the gunman drove a car into several parked RVs and then the car caught fire. Firefighters quickly put that out. The suspect then holed up inside one of those RVs. The LAPD evacuated the neighborhood and surrounded the RV. The shooting victim was taken to a nearby hospital. His condition is unknown. Police searched each RV for the gunman and turned up nothing. More affordable housing in the works to help low-income families in the San Gabriel Valley. Today, state and local leaders announced they have secured $21 million to build affordable housing in the area. The money will also go towards tackling the homeless crisis and providing worker training.
A lot of our council members and mayors have been working really hard and have the same aggressive vision and drive to ensure that every person in the San Gabriel Valley has a home to sleep in.
Some projects can be completed as soon as a year, and officials say, get this, rent is about $270 a month for a single person. Still ahead here at 4, why you may now have one more chance to become an instant millionaire. Plus, some of the candidates who want to replace Governor Newsom getting ready to face off in a debate. We'll have a live preview ahead. Then an extra special birthday for a young Chargers fan, how the team's kicker really made his day. And our COVID coverage continues. Coming up next, getting COVID after being vaccinated. One man right here will share his story with us. As we told you earlier in this newscast, 2 LA City Council members today proposed people prove they've been at least partially vaccinated against COVID to enter public indoor spaces. Many businesses have already taken that step on their own. KCAL 9's Nichelle Medina shows us.
Customers who want to buy a shot at the Permanent Records Roadhouse bar in Los Angeles need proof they've received the shot.
The decision was a difficult one to make.
Owner Lance Barisi asks customers to show evidence of a vaccination card or a negative test.
For the protection of our staff and our patrons, we thought this was the best option.
Effervescence in New Orleans has a similar requirement for indoor diners. Unvaccinated customers are welcome to sit outside.
There's a few people who commented on Instagram, negatively, but most people are applauding us.
With COVID-19 cases rising, there's a growing number of bars and restaurants adopting vaccine policies. Hundreds of establishments in San Francisco now ask for proof of vaccine or negative test. Many owners fear rising infections could lead to another round of shutdowns.
The majority of people barely made it through the first very long and very strict shutdown and reopening process.
The policies have received negative comments.
I think that we're getting maybe 1 or 2 complaints from people who live in San Francisco per day, and then we're getting probably 10 to 15 complaints from people who don't live in California. They don't live anywhere near here.
But many establishments with requirements say they are actually seeing a boost in business.
I want to support establishments that kind of are looking out for the best interests of their patrons and their staff.
Many owners believe only welcoming COVID-free customers will give them a better shot at staying open. Nichelle Medina, KCAL 9 News.
While some businesses have been deciding on their own to require vaccinations, more governments are now looking at imposing requirements. So is that the key to making customers more comfortable going inside a business or more employees to come back to work? Here now to talk to us about these issues and how it affects businesses are Rachel Michelin, the CEO of the California Retailers Association, and Atika Enciso, the owner of Studio Blow, a beauty salon in North Hollywood. Thank you, ladies, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Atika, we'll start with you. First of all, what do you think about the idea of requiring your customers to have a vaccine, number one, and also wear a mask?
Requiring them to wear a mask has actually been implemented recently, so that's been something that we've had to have to reinforce. As far as providing vaccination cards, I'm a little dreading the aspect because although we want to be as safe as possible, I don't feel like it's going to be something that's going to be easy for us to enforce and implement, and it takes away from our timing. It's going to be something that I believe me as the owner will be the person that has to be the person that's doing that, because I can't expect my employees to do that just in case there's any type of backlash.
Yeah, it's no doubt not going to be easy to not only require masks, but also have someone show you their vaccination card. And you, of course, could see some pushback. Rachel, now to you. What sort of reaction have you heard from businesses about vaccine and mask requirements so far?
You know, I kind of agree. I think on the masking piece of it, we've gone through that before. We were, Center Retail was actually a leader when it came to requiring masks in retail establishments at a national level. So, but the idea of checking vaccine cards at the door in order to walk into a retail store or a grocery store, that's a little bit more challenging. We did face backlash just on the masking. We saw folks that were attacked. We saw folks that were spit on. We had our employees that were not treated very nicely by some patrons. And there is a great fear that we'll go back to that, particularly with such a heated debate around the vaccines and these mandates. So we're still kind of processing that and processing what this means. But first and foremost, we still really encourage all of our retail employees and our customers to really consider getting vaccinated. That's the best way for us to get past this pandemic.
Yeah, one thing, of course, is asking people to wear masks. Another thing is a vaccination card, which falls into medical issues or medical privacy. So, again, no doubt there is going to be a little bit of pushback. Atika, back to you. Your business was obviously affected by pandemic shutdowns. Do you think new regulations will hurt or help your business as you try to recover?
I want to be optimistic and say that they're going to be, that everything's going to work out as need be, but my business was very affected by it. I went from 1,200 square feet to a location that now I'm renting about 4 to 5 stations. So it's one of those situations where it's very scary to think that we have to walk this fine line and we want to keep everyone safe, but at the same time, the customer service aspect of a lot of this is going right out the door. And that's extremely, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like it's what we all signed up for. So going forward with all of these other mandates, we're going to follow them, especially since we want to keep everyone safe. And it's just, we're hoping that people understand that it's not something that we're all excited to do or that something that we're trying to police. It's just something that we want to keep everyone safe as much as possible. I have employees that haven't got vaccinated and I have to respect that. They're very safe. They wash their hands, they wear their masks. I do tell the client but ahead of time, just so that you know this employee has not been vaccinated. But that's the right. I can't enforce that, and I don't understand how some businesses
Atika, I can see it in your face and the way you're responding. It definitely is an emotional issue. This is your business, your livelihood, something you obviously enjoy doing, you wanted to do. And of course, this whole COVID thing is definitely causing you to rethink everything, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of time and effort and money and everything. And you have your clients, and we were open for about 4.5 years. So I'm very fortunate that we are still open and we were able to kind of roll with the times and find a different solution, because I know a lot of businesses didn't. But at the same time, it's just this big question mark that you're trying not to overthink. And I feel like we're just in the same situation as we were about a year ago, where we're just very uncertain of what's going to happen.
Indeed. And Rachel, some businesses that have already been requiring vaccines have seen some negative reaction from their customers with bad online reviews or giving employees a hard time or perhaps a small tip. How do the businesses deal with that?
it's tough.
Yeah.
We're, really, I think that this is a decision that needs to be made between the individual and their public health or their physicians and medical personnel. And unfortunately now I think businesses, and I do fear for our small businesses in particular, are being put into this position. And, based on what we've experienced before with some of the reactions on enforcing the mask mandate, there's a great fear among our businesses, our retailers, our employees on how this will play out. We want to be good corporate citizens. We want to be good members of the communities that we serve. But I don't know if this is the right way to go. I think we still need to have some dialogue and conversation about it to see how we can best be part of the solution to ensuring that as many Californians and residents, particularly in Los Angeles, are getting vaccinated.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are hoping for the best. All right, thank you, Atika and Rachel, for joining us today to give us a business perspective of this very sensitive issue. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we will continue the conversation about COVID and how it's still affecting so many aspects of our lives, even after a year and a half, as we just heard these two ladies talking about. Over on our sister station, CBS 2 News at 5, we will have a discussion about how it's affecting schools as they get ready to reopen in just a few weeks. And of course, you can always find the very latest on the pandemic, COVID numbers, and vaccine information on our website, kcal9.com. More schools will be reopening for in-person learning in the next few weeks. Many parents and students are concerned about safety with the spread of COVID's Delta variant. California is requiring students to wear masks, and many districts have increased other safety protocols. Students in the San Bernardino City Unified School District are back on campus this week. And joining us now to talk about how it's going so far is Eric Vittier, the Safety and Emergency Manager for the district. Eric, thanks for being with us today.
Good to be with you, Juan.
First off, what did you do to make students and teachers a bit more comfortable returning to campus? I'm sure it's not easy after this year and a half.
Yeah, it hasn't been easy. However, it's been manageable. So we've made sure that our schools stay a welcoming educational environment. In every classroom, we have hospital-grade HEPA filters. We are requiring face coverings in all our classrooms, pre-entry screening for our students and staff. And then we have a sophisticated group of COVID liaisons that are at each of our campuses that will help manage the COVID cases or COVID concerns that may come from parents or students or our staff members.
So those COVID liaisons, that's very interesting. Is that to help answer questions, making sure the kids keep their masks on, answer parent questions as well? What's that about?
Yeah, so our COVID liaisons are managing all things COVID on the campus so that our educators can focus on educating our scholars. And so they'll handle everything from general parent questions, education about COVID, to concerns about, sniffly noses, or I think my child may have COVID, or we're keeping them home today. They'll be able to liaison with the family, offer testing, and provide any quarantine or isolation guidance that's needed so that we can get our students and staff back into school and keep our schools safe while they're there.
Well, that's really terrific. Even though COVID has been in the news for so long, of course, people always have questions about it. Now, if a student or a teacher shows COVID symptoms, what's the next step at the school district?
So Juan, they'll be assessed by a COVID liaison. They'll ask them a series of questions to see if it's really COVID or if it's something that's known, an allergy, something else that goes on in their home. And then they'll liaison with the families, and they'll find out from the families what the situation is. And then they'll be referred to testing. So we are able, through CDPH, we are able to keep our students in class that are not positive. So if they just had a close contact and they're not exhibiting symptoms and they had their face coverings on and they agree to testing, we're able to keep them in class. And that's huge so that we're not having to quarantine or send a lot of students home.
Yeah, so great for the students and their families as well. What do you say to parents, for example, who keep their kids home, distance learning, because they were concerned their child might get COVID? How do you appease and make them feel better about that?
Well, I think we've learned a lot over the course of this pandemic. And so we know that there's families that for individual reasons are not yet comfortable, and that's okay. We want to make sure that their students stay educated. We also want time to tell the story. And so over time, they'll be able to see how the schools are playing out, how safe they are, how schools are managing them. And that'll help, guide those individual decisions and hopefully get all of our students back in person.
And I know we're at the beginning of a new school year, but have you had any problems so far this week? Any opposition to mask wearing or any of those rules?
No, honestly, Juan, it's gone better than expected. Our students, our staff members, we're out visiting campuses every day, and we're seeing everybody follow the precautions. They know it's for the safety of them and those around them. And so, just for our families, encourage them if your child's feeling ill, just keep them home. We're encouraging our staff the same thing, and reach out to us, and we'll walk you through it on the best way to get your child back to school.
Well, way to go, San Bernardino City. And thank you, Eric Vitier, for updating us on how things are going in your school district. Here's to a great school year. Now at 4:30, this burning home is in the Northern California town of Greenville, which has been lost to the massive Dixie Fire. It's California's largest active wildfire, burning more than 322,000 acres, and it really exploded over the last 24 hours. Wicked winds and low humidity are blowing the flames across more than 300,000 acres of terrain, 150 miles north of Sacramento. KCAL 9's Anthony Pura shows us the aftermath in Greenville.
Charred buildings are all that's left of the historic mountain town of Greenville, California. The Dixie Fire, now the 6th largest in state history, wiped out the evacuated town in just a matter of hours Wednesday night. The fast-moving fire grew by 20,000 acres in a single day.
Hitting here, hitting there, hitting on top of the hill up there. It was unbelievable. This place was so lit up.
The Dixie Fire is just one of more than a dozen large fires tearing across Northern California. It scorched more than 500 square miles, or an area about the size of the city of Phoenix, Arizona.
With all the fires happening around this region, it's kind of hitting us from all sides.
About 100 miles to the south, the River Fire broke out Wednesday near the town of Colfax, forcing people to flee with little more than the clothes on their backs.
As soon as we left, we saw fire everywhere. I mean, we literally pretty much drove through it.
I really just wanted my dad's ashes. How do you put a value on something like just how precious life is, whether it be animal or even a memento of someone you love?
Red flag weather conditions coupled with bone-dry vegetation are fueling the flames.
Please listen to those mandatory evacuations. We want to keep you guys safe.
More than 20,000 firefighters are battling 97 wildfires in 13 states. The fire's so large, you can see them from space. Anthony Pura, KCAL 9 News.
I've never seen anything like it.
The fire equivalent of an ice age.
Like peering into Dante's Inferno.
And it's only going to accelerate.
This new documentary takes a look at why wildfires have become more explosive and extensive. It's called Bring Your Own Brigade. The director focuses on the toll the fires take on firefighters, as well as survivors who had to run for their lives. The director is Lucy Walker, and she joins us now to talk about the film. Lucy, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
Those images are just amazing. And we keep hearing about how bad climate change is, but you say that's only partly to blame for wildfires getting bigger and more frequent. So what else is fueling this?
That's right. That's what I learned making this. I had assumed going in that it was just climate change because we've had these hottest years and these worst fires, right? And it kind of correlated. But there are other factors, and those factors include how we've suppressed the fire. We've been putting out all these fires, and the fuel's been stacking up. We've also had a lot of logging and a lot of invasive species. We've also built in these areas. And is that everything? I feel like there's a few factors, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some of them, but that's we don't sort of break down the menu list item in the movie, but that's actually what we sort of get into and learn about.
Well, it just goes to show you how many factors do take effect here when it comes to the wildfires. Now, you really got in there. You were with crews as they battled the wildfire here in Malibu. What did you learn from that experience?
My gosh, yeah, well, being with the firefighters, I learned a lot about what it's really like to be fighting these fires and quite how much pressure they're under and quite how much we're asking them to do with these terrible fire seasons and terrible fires. And I also learned, and also have friends, who've lost their homes, what it's like to go through those fires and lose your homes, and in some cases to stay and fight. Some people, certainly I wouldn't have the courage to do it, but some people amazed me by staying back to defend their homes. And I really learned what that took and what that was about. And also following through, both from the firefighters' perspective, the toll with the PTSD and quite what it's like when people actually, sort of members of the public, kind of blame you for doing a bad job firefighting when they're, when homes are lost. Or as a resident, when your home gets lost, what's that emotional journey and how do you rebuild and how do you move forward? So we kind of really follow these stories through by following the personal journeys of the firefighters and the residents through these terrible incidents.
And you also featured the deadly fire in Paradise, California back in 2018. We all remember that. What were the differences between that one and the one in Malibu?
I think the similarities are striking to start with. These places burn all the time. I was amazed to learn that Paradise and Malibu wasn't just one fire. It's an absolutely regular occurrence, and people lose their homes, every decade on average in Paradise. And unfortunately, the Dixie Fire is now curling back and threatening Paradise and Concow, the areas we see burn in the movie today again. And those are the similarities. I think the differences are that in Paradise and Malibu, there's a big political and economic difference in that Paradise, the median home price of burned homes was $200,000. In Malibu, it was $2 million. So there's a lot more economic resources in Malibu. But that's not to say that there aren't poor people too. I met people that became homeless and still are homeless because of that fire. But on the other hand, you have people with their own private firefighters. The title of the movie, Bring Your Own Brigade, refers to being able to have your own private firefighters to defend your home. And that's increasingly what we're seeing in places like Malibu, where people have the means.
And Lucy, you say we've always had wildfires here in LA, of course, but for centuries, Native Americans knew how to control them. That's actually something I learned when I was in Yellowstone not too long ago. So what can we learn from Native Americans?
That's right. There's a whole culture of burning and fire being more like a friend or a tool rather than the enemy that we always have to fight and suppress. And the Native Americans used fire more as a tool to garden, to create safe passages, or protect their homes by burning around them, or to hunt, or to, if people were sneaking up on them. There's lots of ways in which fire was used by them. They often deliberately set fires to disinfect or to prevent their settlements being burned. And I think that's something that we increasingly need to look at, because as we put out all these fires, we've been stacking up all this fuel so that when we get an ignition, or we get a crazy lightning, or for some reason something sparks, we're not going to have these explosive amounts of fuel, which mean that with the wind and the fuel being what they are, they're just not possible to fight these fires before they've done a great deal of damage. I think that's hard for us to understand, that these fires are so bad. But we can look at native species like the giant sequoia, for example, these ultimate fire-adapted species that have lived through 50 fires already, but are now burning in these wildfires. Now, why? Because they can live in fire. In fact, their seed pods don't even open until smoke comes along. But actually, these fires are so much hotter and bigger now because the fuel has been so stacked up. So yes, we've always had fires in California, and I think we need to understand that they are inevitable. But what we need to think about is what happens when they do come through. Can we manage our fuels differently? Can we build differently so that when they do happen, we're not going to lose everything?
My goodness. Well, Bring Your Own Brigade is going to be debuting in theaters tomorrow and then stream on CBSN and Paramount Plus starting on August 20th. So looking forward to seeing that. Thank you so much, Lucy Walker, for joining us today. And the images we've been showing as you've been talking about the movie documentary there, just unbelievable. So really looking forward to that.